My child, my beloved, this moment is not random. It is not a coincidence stitched together by time or chance. You did not arrive here by accident, and you are not hearing these words because you were simply passing through. Something has been guiding you quietly, patiently long, before you realized you were being led. Even the delays in your life were part of the design. Even your detours were not wasted. Even the moments when you felt lost were still inside a larger direction. There is a reason your spirit feels unusually still right now. There is a reason your attention has narrowed. There is a reason something inside you whispered, "Stay, listen, don't move yet." This is a divine interruption. Not an interruption meant to disturb you, but one meant to realign you. You have been carrying a subtle weight, not heavy enough to crush you, but heavy enough to slow you. A pressure that doesn't always show in your words, but shows in your breath, in the way you wake up already tired, in the way your mind keeps circling the same thoughts, even when your life looks fine on the surface. Something has been slightly off, not broken, not destroyed, just out of rhythm, like a clock that still moves but no longer tells the right time. You've tried to explain it away. You've told yourself it's stress, or responsibility, or just another season that will eventually pass. You've told yourself you should be grateful, and you are. You've told yourself you should be stronger, and you have been. But still, there is that quiet knowing inside you that something is not aligned the way it once was, or the way it's meant to be. And that knowing has been getting harder to ignore. This message is coming to you now, not because something is about to punish you, but because something is trying to reach you. There is a sense of timing around your life right now. A narrowing, a focusing. Not to trap you, but to bring you back to the center of your own path. You are standing in a moment where continuing forward unconsciously will cost you more than stopping for a moment and listening. You have been protected more times than you realize. There were situations that should have collapsed completely but didn't. There were choices that could have cost you far more, but somehow didn't. There were moments when things almost broke beyond repair, and something held them back. You may have called it luck. You may have called it coincidence, but it was containment. It was mercy slowing outcomes you were not yet ready to carry. But hear this gently: containment is not meant to be permanent. Protection is not meant to become a cage. At some point, life invites you to grow beyond the stage where things must be constantly held back for you. At some point, alignment becomes more important than insulation. And you are approaching that point now. Not with danger, with significance. Something is approaching your life not to destroy it, but to correct its course. And correction always feels urgent right before it happens. Not because something bad is chasing you, but because something better is waiting, and timing matters. You were chosen to hear this now because you are ready now, not fully certain, not fully confident, but ready enough to pause, ready enough to listen, ready enough to feel that subtle recognition in your chest that says, "This is for me." You felt it when these words began. That quiet stillness. That strange sense of being seen without being exposed. That feeling that something is speaking to you, not at you. This is not here to accuse you. Not here to pressure you. Not here to overwhelm you. This is here to wake you gently. Because if you continue exactly as you are without awareness, something eventually will force a pause for you. And this message is here to spare you from that kind of interruption. You are not in danger, but you are at a decision point, and decision points rarely arrive with signs and announcements. They arrive as feelings, as restlessness, as a sense that something needs attention even if you can't explain why. You have been strong for a very long time. You have adapted when you should have been supported. You have endured when you should have been held. You have carried responsibilities that were never meant to live on your shoulders forever. But endurance is not your destination. Survival is not your calling. There is more than just getting through waiting for you. Something in your life is slightly out of order, slightly out of rhythm, slightly out of alignment, and it has been that way longer than you want to admit. Not because you are careless, not because you are failing, but because at some point, something nudged you off center and you kept going. Not far, just enough to matter. And when you walk long enough in a direction that is only slightly off, you don't notice it at first, but eventually, you look up and realize you are not where you expected to be. Time itself is asking for your attention now. Not loudly, not harshly, but persistently. Stay with this moment. Do not rush past it. Do not minimize what you are feeling, because what comes next will only make sense if you allow yourself to remain here, in this quiet, sacred pause, where something is about to be gently revealed to you. And when it is, you will understand why you were asked to stop and listen. Here is part 2 expanded to approximately 800 words, maintaining the same tone, rules, emotional depth, and narrative continuity. There was a moment in your life that did not look important while it was happening. It did not announce itself as a turning point. It did not come with a warning or a sense of finality. It arrived quietly, dressed like a practical decision, or a necessary silence, or a compromise you told yourself was only for now. You did not choose it because you wanted less from your life. You chose it because you were tired. Because you were trying to survive something that was draining you in ways no one could see. Because you were trying to be reasonable, or kind, or strong, or patient. And that matters. You have been carrying an invisible weight since then, not heavy enough to stop you from functioning, but heavy enough to change how you move, how you hope, how you expect things to turn out. You kept going, you always do. You adjusted, you adapted. You told yourself, this is fine, this is what adulthood looks like, this is just how things are sometimes. But your spirit never fully agreed with that story. That is why your rest has not always restored you. That is why your accomplishments have not always satisfied you. That is why even in moments of quiet, something in you feels unfinished. The disruption did not come through something dramatic. It came through influence, through pressure, through a moment when you felt alone inside a decision you never wanted to make by yourself. It came through something you did not feel strong enough to challenge at the time. And my beloved, hear this with compassion. It was not fully your fault. You did not see all the consequences. You did not have all the information. You did not have the emotional space or the support you needed to choose differently. You were doing the best you could with the strength you had in that season. And that season was heavier than you let yourself admit. But the consequence of that moment was not only circumstantial, it was directional. You did not fall off your path. You drifted slightly from its center. And a small drift over time becomes a very different destination. You continued building. You continued showing up. You continued trying to do the right things. But something in the foundation was no longer perfectly aligned. Not enough to make everything collapse. Just enough to make certain doors harder to open. Just enough to make progress feel slower than it should. Just enough to make some lessons repeat when they should have already ended. You have felt this repetition. You have wondered why some patterns keep coming back, why some breakthroughs almost happen but never fully land. Why you keep getting close, but not quite arriving. You have asked yourself, what am I missing? What am I doing wrong? Why does it still feel like this? And too often, you turn those questions against yourself. You blamed your discipline, your focus, your worth. But this was never about your value. It was about your direction. You were not meant to live in constant self-correction. You were not meant to carry a constant sense of internal tension. You were not meant to feel like you always have to hold everything together by force. The tiredness you feel is not laziness. It is misalignment. The confusion you feel is not failure. It is your spirit noticing that something is not where it belongs. And here is the part that is hard to admit. You have known this for a long time, not in words, in feelings, in that subtle resistance you feel toward certain things, in that quiet grief that comes and goes without a clear story attached to it, in that sense of I thought I'd be further by now. There has been patience surrounding you. More than you realize. You have not been rushed, you have not been condemned. You have been given time to grow, time to stabilize, time to survive what you were walking through. But time is not meant to become a hiding place. Eventually it becomes an invitation. Something is being brought back to your awareness now, not to reopen wounds, not to accuse you, but to free you from a quiet agreement you made when you were tired, afraid, or alone. You don't need to relive that moment. You don't need to justify yourself. You don't need to defend your choices. You only need to be honest about what no longer fits who you are becoming. Because you are not the same person you were back then. You are stronger now, clearer now, more aware now, and that means you no longer need same compromises. Something is loosening. You may feel it as restlessness, or as clarity, or as a gentle discomfort that won't go away. That is not trouble. That is release beginning, and release always starts when you are finally ready to see something you were never meant to carry forever. You have called them delays. You have called them obstacles. You have told yourself that maybe it just wasn't the right time, that perhaps this is simply how life unfolds, and on the surface, that explanation seemed reasonable. But deep inside, you have felt that it was more than that. There have been moments when things were so close to moving forward that you could almost feel them in your hands, and then somehow, they didn't. Moments when peace almost settled into your life, and then quietly slipped away again. Moments when you thought, this is it. This is the turning point, and yet the door did not fully open. Not because you were being punished, not because you were being denied, but because you were being protected. Some paths are delayed not to keep you from good things, but to keep you from building your future on a foundation that is not yet steady. Some manifestations are postponed, because if they had arrived too early, they would have demanded a version of you that had not yet been allowed to fully emerge. So what felt like resistance was actually restraint. What felt like a closed door was actually a safeguard. What felt like silence was actually preparation happening quietly, beneath the surface of your life. But here is a truth that requires both tenderness and courage. Protection is not meant to become a permanent condition. At some point, the reason for the delay must be faced. Otherwise, delay turns into a pattern. And pattern turns into a cycle. And cycle slowly begins to shape how you see yourself and what you expect from life. You were never meant to adapt to misalignment. You were meant to outgrow it. That quiet heaviness you feel sometimes, that sense that things take more effort than they should, that peace feels more fragile than it should, that is not a character flaw. That is your spirit remembering a rhythm it hasn't been able to return to yet. You have been strong. You have been patient. You have kept moving even when you were tired in places you couldn't explain. But strength is not meant to replace alignment. Endurance is not meant to become your identity. You were not created just to manage life. You were meant to live it. And the repeating patterns you have been walking through are not here to mock you. They are here to signal something. They are showing you where a gentle correction is needed, not a condemnation, not a collapse. A correction. There is a narrowing of time now, not because something bad is approaching you, but because something right is waiting for you. And timing matters when alignment is involved. There are doors that cannot open until certain internal agreements are released. There are paths that cannot become clear until certain weights are put down. There are kinds of peace that do not coexist with quiet self-betrayal. And you know, deep inside where you have been asking yourself to endure things you were actually meant to outgrow. The frustration you sometimes feel is not because you are failing. It is because part of you is ready to move on. Part of you has already moved on. but another part is still holding on to what once felt necessary. And that tension is what you feel as heaviness. There is nothing wrong with you for feeling it. It is a sign of growth. But growth requires honesty. And honesty requires a moment of stillness. You are closer than you think. Closer to clarity, closer to relief, closer to a version of your life that feels more like breathing and less like bracing. But closeness is not the same as arrival. And arrival will require one small, sincere adjustment that your spirit already recognizes, even if your mind has not yet found the words for it. Do not rush to solve it. Do not pressure yourself to fix everything. This is not a season for forcing. This is a season for realigning. Pay attention to what keeps repeating. Pay attention to what drains you more than it should. Pay attention to what feels like it belongs to an older version of you. Those are not accusations. They are invitations. You are not being asked to tear your life apart. You are being invited to return it to its true center. And when something returns to center, many things begin to move without being pushed. The moment you stop carrying what is not yours to carry, you will feel space open inside you. The moment you stop walking in a direction that is only slightly off, you will feel momentum return. This is not about becoming someone new. This is about becoming fully who you already are. Something is beginning to loosen. You may not see it yet, but you may already feel it, a subtle lightness, a strange clarity, a quiet sense that something is preparing to shift. Stay with that feeling. Because it is not the end of something, it is the beginning of alignment finding you again. You have never been as alone as you sometimes feel, even in the moments when you were surrounded by people and still felt unseen, even in the night, when your thoughts were the only voices in the room, even in the seasons when you were carrying questions no one else seemed to notice. You were not unobserved. There has been a tension on your journey that you cannot see. Not the kind that waits for you to fail, but the kind that waits to catch you. The kind that intervenes quietly, redirects gently, and shields you in ways you may only understand later. There were outcomes that could have been far harsher. There were consequences that could have cost you far more. There were moments when one small step in the wrong direction would have changed everything, and yet, something held things back. Some doors closed not because you were unworthy, but because walking through them at that time would have slowly diminished you. Some opportunities disappeared, not because you missed them, but because they would have demanded a version of you that had not yet healed. Your tears were not wasted. The nights you lay awake thinking, "I don't know how much longer I can carry this," were not ignored. The quiet prayers you whispered, even the ones that felt more like sighs than words, were heard. You have been carried more than you have been pushed. You have been guarded more than you have been driven. And still, you kept showing up. That matters. But here is something that must be spoken with both tenderness and truth. Help is always available. But help responds to consent. There are certain changes that will not be forced into your life. Not because you are forgotten, but because your life is respected. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a participant in your own becoming. You are not being managed. You are being invited. There is a realm of support around you that is ready to move the moment you give permission for a certain correction to occur. And permission does not mean you have everything figured out. It does not mean you are fearless. It simply means you are willing to stop pretending that what hurts does not hurt, and that what no longer fits still belongs. You have felt the nudges, the quiet discomforts, the subtle inner checks. Those were not random thoughts. They were invitations. And you did not delay because you are stubborn. You delayed because you were afraid of what change might cost. Afraid of disappointing someone. Afraid of losing stability. Afraid of opening a door you might not be able to close again. That fear is understood. It is not judged. But here is the gentle truth: the cost of staying the same is slowly becoming higher than the cost of changing, not dramatically, not catastrophically, but gradually, in the form of quiet fatigue. in the form of dimmed joy, in the form of a life that works, but does not fully breathe. The support around you is not impatient, but it is attentive. It is aware of timing. It is aware of readiness. It is aware of the moment when endurance stops being noble and starts being unnecessary. You are not being watched to be evaluated. You are being watched to be helped. And the help is closer than you think, so close that you may already be feeling a strange mixture of comfort and anticipation right now. That feeling of something is about to shift, even if I can't explain how. That is not imagination. That is proximity. Something is aligning itself to your willingness. Something is preparing to move when you are. You do not have to force anything. You do not have to prove anything. You only have to agree to be honest. Honest about what you want. Honest about what you need. Honest about what you are done carrying. And when that agreement forms quietly inside you, movement will begin without noise. Doors will open without strain. Clarity will arrive without panic. Because the support around you does not rush you, it walks with you. And right now, it is waiting for you to take one small, sincere step toward yourself, not because you are behind, but because you are ready. And readiness always feels like both comfort and nervousness at the same time. Stay with that feeling, because it is the sound of something unseen beginning to lean in your direction. Every true change begins with a pause, not a collapse, not a crisis, a pause. A quiet moment when you stop living on momentum and start listening to the deeper rhythm inside you again. That moment is approaching you now. Not rushing, not forcing itself into your life. Approaching like an invitation. There is a reroute available to you, not one that erases your past, not one that shames you for where you've been, one that gently corrects where you are going. You are not being asked to become someone else. You are being invited to stop abandoning who you already are. There is something that is about to surface in your life. It may arrive as a conversation you did not plan to have, a realization you did not expect, a name that suddenly feels heavier than it used to, a truth that quietly refuses to stay hidden any longer, or a sign so simple you might almost miss it, except your spirit won't. It will not announce itself with noise. It will arrive as recognition, as a moment when something inside you says, "This is what it's been about." And when it comes, you may feel two very different emotions at the same time. Relief, because something finally makes sense. And fear, because you will realize that something must change. Not everything, just something important. This is where choice becomes sacred, not dramatic, not rushed, but meaningful. You are not being pushed, you are being trusted. Trusted to choose your own alignment. Trusted to listen to what you already know. Trusted to stop carrying what you no longer need. The reroute will not demand that you destroy your life. It will ask you to simplify it. It will not take away what is truly yours. It will quietly loosen what has been slowly draining you. You do not have to explain this to anyone. You do not have to defend it. You do not have to have perfect words for it. This is between you and the future version of you who is waiting to breathe easier. Pay attention to what begins to stand out in the coming days. What suddenly feels heavier, what suddenly feels clearer, what suddenly feels less negotiable. Those are not random shifts, they are signals. Pay attention to what you are no longer willing to minimize. Pay attention to what you are no longer able to ignore. The reroute will not come as chaos, it will come as clarity, and clarity often feels quiet before it feels strong. You may be tempted to delay it, to wait for a better time, to wait until things are more convenient, or more stable, or less complicated. But alignment rarely arrives when life is simple. It arrives when life is honest. And honesty is where freedom begins. Do not rush to label what is happening. Do not rush to fix everything. Just notice. Just listen. Just stay open. because once you see what is being shown to you, you will never unsee it. And that is not a loss. That is the beginning of release. Some paths do not end with a door slamming shut. They end with a door quietly being left behind. And you do not realize how heavy it was until you stop holding it open. You are not walking away from your life. You are walking into it. You are not losing yourself. You are returning to yourself, and return always feels both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. Trust the gentleness of this process. Trust the timing of what is being revealed. Trust that you are not being rushed, but you are being invited. Something is rearranging itself around your willingness. Something is responding to your honesty. Something is preparing to meet you where you are brave enough to be. You may not know the full shape of what comes next. You don't need to. You only need to recognize the moment when staying the same becomes more uncomfortable than taking one small, true step forward. That moment is closer than you think. And when it arrives, you will not need to be convinced. You will simply know, and knowing will be enough to begin. When truth comes close, the body often feels it before the mind can explain it. You may notice a restlessness that does not come from anxiety, but from awareness, a tenderness that rises without a clear story attached to it. A strange quiet that settles over you even when nothing around you has changed. These are not signs of confusion. They are signs of clarity approaching. Something is being illuminated, not to expose you, not to shame you, but to free you. Revelation does not always arrive as information. Sometimes it arrives as relief. Sometimes as grief. Sometimes as the deep exhale you didn't realize you were holding. Sometimes as the sudden realization that you have been trying very hard to make something work that no longer matches who you are becoming. You may find old thoughts losing their grip. Old justifications feeling thinner. Old fears sounding quieter. And you may also feel moments of sadness, not because you are losing something good, but because you are finally seeing how long you have been carrying something that was never meant to stay. This is not regression. This is release beginning. Your emotions may feel closer to the surface during this time. You may feel more sensitive to certain conversations, more aware of certain patterns, more honest about what drains you and what nourishes you. Let that happen. Do not judge yourself for it. Do not try to fix yourself out of it. You are not breaking down, you are opening up. And opening always feels vulnerable before it feels stable. You may feel the urge to explain everything, to confront everything, to solve everything at once. Resist that. This is not a season for reaction. This is a season for observation. Watch what comes into your awareness. Watch what feels heavier than it used to. Watch what suddenly feels out of place. Watch what feels surprisingly peaceful. Those signals are not random. They are the language of your spirit recalibrating. Some truths do not come as statements. They come as shifts in tolerance. Things you used to accept without question may now feel strangely wrong. Things you used to chase may now feel strangely empty. Things you used to fear may now feel strangely small. That is not confusion. That is perspective changing. And perspective changing can feel disorienting for a little while. Be gentle with yourself in this phase. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. You are arriving. And arrival feels strange when you have been traveling in one direction for a long time. You may grieve what could have been. You may feel compassion for the version of you that made certain choices just to survive. You may even feel a little anger, not at yourself, but at how much you carried quietly. All of that is part of truth coming into the light. Let it move through you, not to stay, but to clear space. Soon, something will make sense. Not everything, but enough to take one honest step, enough to loosen something that has been tight for a long time, enough to feel a little more room inside your own life. And that is how real change always begins. Not with certainty, with clarity, not with force, with recognition. You do not need to rush. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to announce anything. You only need to stay present with what is being revealed. Because what is being revealed is not here to overwhelm you. It is here to lighten you. And lightness may feel unfamiliar at first. When you have been strong for a long time, even ease can feel strange. But you will adjust, gently, naturally, in your own time. Trust this process. Trust what is coming into focus. Trust that you are not losing your way. You are finally seeing it. And soon, very soon, one small, clear choice will feel obvious. Not pressured, not dramatic. Just true. And when that happens, you will understand why this phase had to be quiet, and why it had to be gentle, and why it had to be honest. There is a window opening in your life. Not a loud one, not a dramatic one, a quiet one. A window that does not invite you to run backward but to return inward. Restoration does not mean going back to what hurt you. It does not mean pretending nothing happened. It does not mean shrinking yourself to fit into old spaces that no longer recognize who you have become. Restoration means reclaiming what was always yours before you learned to settle. Your clarity, your peace, your sense of direction, your ability to breathe inside your own life. You will recognize this season not by how easy it is but by how right it feels. Things will begin to fit again, not perfectly, but truthfully. Conversations will start to feel more honest. Decisions will start to feel more grounded. Your body will start to relax in ways it forgot it could. This is not because everything around you has suddenly changed. It is because something inside you has returned to its proper place. Do not hesitate when you feel the gentle pull forward. Hesitation does not cancel what is meant for you, but it can delay your relief. You have waited a long time to feel at home in your own choices again. You have waited a long time to stop negotiating with your own spirit, and now, something is making that negotiation unnecessary. You may notice opportunities that feel different than the ones you chased before, quieter, cleaner, less dramatic, but more nourishing. Do not overlook them because they do not look like your old expectations. Sometimes restoration comes disguised as simplicity. Sometimes it comes disguised as stability. Sometimes it comes disguised as peace that feels almost too ordinary, until you realize how long it has been since you had it. There will be moments when the old patterns try to speak again, not because they are still powerful, but because they are familiar. Familiar does not mean true. Familiar does not mean safe. It only means practiced. You are allowed to choose differently now, not out of rebellion, out of alignment. This window is not about proving anything to anyone. It is about finally agreeing with yourself. You do not need to announce your healing. You do not need to justify your boundaries. You do not need to explain your new pace. You only need to protect what is being restored. And restoration is a tender thing at first, like a limb that has just begun to regain feeling. You do not test it with pressure. You treat it with care. You will feel your energy returning in small ways, your interest returning, your hope returning. Not as a sudden rush, but as a steady, quiet presence. That is how you will know this is real. It will not demand urgency. It will create steadiness. But do not confuse gentleness with slowness. There is a timing to this window, not a threatening one, a sacred one. Some invitations do not remain open forever, not because they are taken away, but because seasons change. And this season is about receiving what you have prepared for without realizing it. You have done more inner work than you think. You have grown more than you can see. You are more ready than you feel. Do not let hesitation become a habit again. You do not need to rush, but you do need to respond. Respond to what feels peaceful. Respond to what feels honest. Respond to what feels like a return to yourself. Restoration will not put you back where you were. It will move you forward without the weight you used to carry. It will not give you your old life back. It will give you your life back, and that is better. Something is being rebuilt quietly in you. Not from pressure. From truth, not from fear. From clarity. Stay close to that. Protect it. Choose in favor of it, because this window is not just about feeling better. It is about living truer, and you are closer now than you have ever been. Closer than you think. Closer than you can measure. All you have to do is not turn away from the door that is already open. My beloved, listen to this gently, and let it land where it needs to land. Your story is not defined by the moment things shifted. It is not defined by the season you merely survived. It is not defined by the choice you made when you were tired, afraid, or alone. Your story is defined by the moment you chose to realign. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not disqualified. You are not behind some invisible line you can never cross. You are standing at a quiet threshold. A place that does not look dramatic but changes everything. A place that does not demand perfection but asks for honesty. A place that does not threaten you but invites you. What you choose next matters. Not because you will be punished if you don't choose correctly, but because you deserve what becomes possible when you do. You have already carried enough weight. You have already proven your endurance. You have already shown that you can survive. Now you are being asked to live. There is a difference. Survival is loud. Life is spacious. Survival is bracing. Life is breathing. You have spent a long time bracing, and it has made you strong, but it has also made you tired. And tiredness is not a failure. It is a signal that you are ready for a different way of being in your own story. Do not underestimate the power of one honest decision, not a dramatic one, not a public one, a quiet one. The kind that only you and your future will ever fully understand. The kind that says, I am no longer willing to live slightly away from myself. The kind that says, I am ready to stop carrying what is not mine. The kind that says, I choose alignment over familiarity. That choice will not fix everything overnight, but it will change the direction of everything. And direction is what your life has been quietly asking for. You may still feel fear. That does not mean you are doing it wrong. You may still feel uncertainty. That does not mean you are unprepared. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to move with it. Gently, honestly, at your own pace. Stay with this awareness. Do not rush away from it. Do not drown it out with noise or distraction. Let it settle into you. Let it become clear in you, because clarity does not shout, it waits. And when you are ready, it speaks in a voice that feels like recognition. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. You do not need permission from the past. You do not need to carry old explanations into a new season. You are allowed to begin again without calling it starting over. You are allowed to continue without calling it settling. You are allowed to choose yourself without calling it selfish. This is not the end of anything that was truly meant for you. It is the end of carrying what was not, and that is always a beginning. Something gentle but firm is asking for your yes. Not a loud yes, not a perfect yes. A true yes. A yes that sounds like relief. A yes that feels like exhaling. A yes that feels like coming home to your own life. And you will know when you have said it. Not because the world changes instantly, but because you do. Your posture will soften. Your decisions will simplify. Your inner life will quiet in a way it hasn't for a long time. That is how you will recognize alignment. And when that happens, do not look back at yourself with regret. Look back with compassion. You did the best you could with what you had. And now you have more. More clarity, more strength, more choice. Stand here for a moment longer, at this quiet threshold. Feel what is being asked of you, not in fear. in hope, because what is in front of you is not a test, it is an invitation. And when you take it, gently, honestly, in your own way, you will understand why everything had to unfold the way it did to bring you here.